The People's Democratic Party, some socio-economic, socio-cultural groups, including the Ohanaeze Ndigbo and the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERAP, have called on President Muhammadu Buhari to review his security strategies as they decry the growing rate of insecurity in the country. They specifically urged the president to replace the nation's service chiefs, faulting the security chiefs' claim that their strategies were working. The National Publicity Secretary of the PDP, Kola Olubodiyan, on Friday said Buhari needs to urgently overhaul his security strategies for the nation. He stated that in spite of the claim of security chiefs that their security strategies were working, the rate of killings, banditry, kidnapping and other violent crimes had escalated. The SERAP's Executive Director, Adetokunbo Mumuni, said the president needed to rejig his security team, noting that if their strategies were working, Nigerians would evidently see them and not be told. And we're being joined live in the studio by retired Air Vice Marshal Femi Gbadebo, OFR. He's a security expert, of course. It's good to have you join us, ABM.
Good morning.
Of course, the whole stories are about insecurity, meaning that, there's a lot on Mr. President's plate. But first things first, let's assess the state of insecurity in Nigeria. There are people who are of the opinion that we are unnecessarily screaming blue murder, and there are people who actually think that there is a problem, and if we don't deal with it in time, then it might spiral out of control. Where do you stand?
In between. You see, social media has done some good, but a lot of damage. It's continued to do a lot of damage. A lot of the videos and even write-ups and stories that are flashing around are not necessarily correct or relevant to today. We have seen videos that people have identified as things that happened a year or two ago. We have seen write-ups that have been written by people who are questionable character, who just don't see anything good in this government. And the rate at which people forward these things, it creates a lot of concern and alarm. And when people who should know, like the vice president and some of the security chiefs, tell us that things are not as bad as we think, we should believe them, because these people get what we call security updates every morning. And I think one of the problems with us in Nigeria is that we are not even taking statistics seriously. Because when you take statistics seriously, you would look at something. When they say, okay, there was a plane crash and maybe 150 people died, the whole world is like, wow, how many people have died? But have we bothered to look at the statistics of the number of buses that are crashing on the road and the number of accidents on the road? When we compare the deaths in a month to maybe one plane crash, it's really not, it's not that bad. It's just that this is more sensational.
Well, but then again, talking about statistics, there are times where the media clashes with security agencies because they're trying to cover up on the number of people who are truly dead compared to what they allow us to put out there. And they say, oh, it's because of, we don't want to create panic. But if we're talking of statistics, then we need to put it out there, shouldn't we?
Yeah, we should. And we should actually credit the military authorities now with the speed with which they are releasing some of the information that they're giving out. Because when I was at the defense headquarters during the Bakassi crisis, one of our major problems was that information was not coming out as it went due. And so the media and mischief makers, I'm really glad that social media was not that bad then. Mischief makers were creating a problem. I remember there was a time when there's something the military does, what is called rotation of troops. If you have troops in a crisis area like the Northeast and so on, you don't keep these people under pressure for too long. So maybe every 6 months or a year or something, you rotate them. And it's an organized movement where you will not have any gap. So everything is put in place. Those who are coming in, you get them ready, and they probably move in a combo overnight. And by tomorrow morning, everything is there. And it's done in a way that the enemy, quote unquote, would not be aware to take advantage of that.
But is that being done now, or has that changed?
What I'm trying to say is that at that time, we had a change in the Calabar-Bakassi area. And because no information was given, the media went agog, and it was like Nigeria was moving in to invade Cameroon. I mean, they didn't see the troops coming out. They just saw the additional troops coming in, so to speak. And it took a lot of crisis management to avoid things escalating. But that's what I'm saying now. We're getting a lot of information. There's an accident, there's a crash, some soldiers have been killed. We're getting a lot more information than we used to get.
Okay. Now let's talk about the fight against insurgency, which the present administration has said that they have technically won the war. And we just, got a story saying that, some people were neutralized, ISWAP members were neutralized during an airstrike. Can we say that so far we have been able to limit, the hit that we get from these guys on a daily basis? It used to be a lot more than this, but now, it's rogue. We hear just a pocket of violence here and there. Can we really say it's an applaud or a pat on the back for?
Well, I'm glad you said little pockets of attacks here and there, because if we go back, let's say 4 or 5 years ago, that wasn't the picture. It got to a stage where people were afraid to go to churches in certain places. People were afraid to attend large group events. But essentially all over the country, even Maiduguri, things have gone back to normal. What the degraded enemy does is what Boko Haram and the splinter groups are doing now. And we must understand that Boko Haram is no longer one big organization. It is small factions scattered all over the country. And what they're doing is what you call like hit and run tactics. And that is very difficult to police. You can't be everywhere. They are able to move into one small gathering, a mosque here, in a market here, blow up one keke marwa, and everybody panics and they pat themselves on the back. But the reality is, have we seen any of those mob events like the Abuja bombings, and so on? No. I mean, we had what you could call a peaceful Christmas. Even coming into the inauguration of the president, coming into June 12th celebrations, 6, 7 years ago, these were things that were done quietly within the villa with maybe 100 or so guests, because even the system could not guarantee safety of large numbers of people. So
are you in any way trying to suggest what the PDP and SERAP is saying is wrong? Because they're saying, look, the service chiefs need to go. The strategies they have are not working. We need fresh blood with fresh ideas. Because what you're saying now is that, hey, the army or the joint task force has done a great job, and that's why we can celebrate and sleep with our eyes closed. But is that really the case?
It is the case. Even when it comes to kidnapping and some of these cases that we're seeing on the roads, the evidence keeps pointing to the fact, when they are resolved, that there are local elements masquerading under the guise of something. Okay? I'll tell you, sometimes when you hear that maybe armed robbers went to a bank and they carted away millions and so on, when the bank robbers are arrested, some of them actually say, no, we didn't take that much money. And it's between you and the manager of the bank to know exactly what happened. When you are dealing with people who have gotten used to these things, I mean, all kinds of rogue elements are operating around now, all over the place. And it's a question of the local intelligence also working with military intelligence or the organized intelligence for us to know who are the strangers within us and who are the people creating those problems.
Interesting, and that would mean having local police. But before we go there, let's talk about the Ruga settlement issue. The Nobel laureate has spoken. The Oni of Ife has spoken. Of course, the Ohanaeze Ndigbo, they've all spoken about this Ruga settlement. A couple of people would say it was a great idea sold in bad light or sold at the wrong time. And some other people are saying it's not a good idea. It's not your place in the first instance to come up with this idea. It's a business. Let these people run it. But now they're saying we need to stand up and protect or defend our fatherland or our different areas, ancestral land. So I'm just wondering, is it that bad that we have to? Because again, I asked somebody earlier today, if I were to come on TV and give the government an ultimatum, the DSS will be waiting for me at the door. Where's the DSS on this matter? Why is this video allowed to go? And the silence is very, very loud. Again, there is a certain Nnamdi Kanu and his people who were proscribed immediately, with immediate alacrity. Why is this not being done? Something is not being done about it, and everybody's wondering why.
Well, the issues are not exactly the same.
Of course they're not.
When you say you are going to remove one part of Nigeria and create a country of your own, you're talking about succession. That is a highly treasonable offense. And when you now go out to enforce it by trying to do some of the things they were doing.
They were just protesting.
Yes. And you actually register a presence. I think it's quite different from a video. We've seen a lot of videos from Boko Haram. We've seen a lot of videos from various interest groups. If you remember, this group that came out, youth from the north, that gave a deadline of October.
Nothing happened to them.
And nothing happened. Yes, government should say something. The leadership in the north should say something, and I believe a couple of groups have already come out to, to distance themselves from this thing. But like I said, there are two different things. I'm not exactly in a position to say why government has not said this or said that.
And for the security agencies, how come these people have not been questioned? Because you're not just talking to the federal government, you're also talking to the southern governors. And I think they called it some form of raving madness. That's what they termed it as, the calling off of the Ruga settlement issue.
Yeah, but you see, interestingly, I'm sure you're aware that even some Fulani groups have come out to say they're not interested in Ruga. So, there are people playing games, semantics, names are being changed, and so on. It is true that we must organize how cattle is being moved. I'm actually disappointed that nobody has even talked about health issues, because there's a difference between animals that are properly cared for under a group, organized system, and those who roam around and people just stop them on the road, buy a cow or whatever and use for their ceremonies, and you don't even know if they've been properly vaccinated, treated, and so on and so forth. So there are health issues also involved here. But the fact that many people have come to point out is that before things fell apart in this country, I'd say, you see, when we used to have farm settlements in prominent parts of this country, those farm settlements are still there. Obviously, they've deteriorated, they've fallen apart. Mm-hmm. We need to sort them out again and get them to function properly. And we need to figure out where else we could do these things. And I believe that the state government should run their own settlements, with federal government assisting them in whatever way to do those things.
Well, thank you very much, retired Air Vice Marshal Femi Badebo, OFR. Thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate it.